Honorable Sam George. Let's welcome him again.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very insightful engagement since morning. I really would have loved to stay till the end, but I told Chairman Sames that I need to run. There's something else that's been waiting for me. But I think that we've had very insightful presentations. All the presentations today have been very eye-opening, and the conversations that we have had here have been stimulating, from His Excellency President John Agyekum Kufuor to my big brother George, to Director Engineering from the NCA, and to what we just saw from WAPS. Critical things need to be done. I believe that there's a rapporteur who's taking down all the keynotes that have been, all the key points that have been made today. But one key thing I just want to drive home in this room to our traditional media broadcasters, and that's something I was saying to the Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, is that we're talking about the disruption of new media. However, if you really look at a lot of the new media broadcast that is done on the platforms, they don't own content. They take content from traditional media and analyze that content to create their own content. They actually rely on traditional media. So there is, for me, a diamond in the rough there, that traditional media still has the reach and the resource to create content that new media broadcasters don't have. Because the guy is sitting down there with an iPhone and a ring light and a router. That's all he has. He's not got reporters, he's not got networks, he's not invited into policy meetings where you will get invited into. He doesn't have a newsroom, he doesn't have editors. You have all of that. So what I think we must do here, especially for traditional broadcasters, is for you to embrace the technology and not fight the technology. If you embrace the technology, and I use the example of GTV or GBC. GBC is beginning to make more revenue on their online page than traditional advertising on the TV network. People want to place adverts there because there's engagement on that platform. And so if you're generating your content, embrace digital technology. I always use this, when I did the AI bootcamp for ministers, I used this analogy, and I'll use the same analogy here. Those of you who are a bit older and have old aunties, we had aunties who were stenographers in the civil service. You know, they were called stenographers, and they had grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and all of that. And they used the typewriter, where they had a carbon film in there, and when they type, then they draw that thing, and then it goes to the next. That was the enter. That was the enter key, you know, with the typewriter. Now, when computers became a thing, everybody started learning how to type with Mavis Beacon. In fact, how many people learned how to type here with Mavis Beacon? Fantastic. And so we all learned how to type with Mavis Beacon. There were stenographers, grade 3, who thought that they were at the peak of their career and will not touch that thing. And that the civil service will not survive without them. And so they didn't jump on the Mavis Beacon bandwagon. Those stenographers became redundant. When you no longer had the typewriters, and now you had computers, and they did not know how to even turn on the system units and turn on the monitor, they became redundant. But those who adapted, transitioned, and now have become the principal secretaries and executive secretaries in the civil service, it's the same thing that must happen with media houses, traditional media houses. Embrace digital technology and let's move. Now, George has raised critical questions about the broadcasting bill, and that's one of the things that I expect will come out of this. Because look, I've not spent my first 4 working hours of today to just come and do a talk shop here and walk away. We must have some tangibles out of this. And so there's going to be a workshop report that the rapporteur will put together. And one of the things I want, and that workshop report is not just to come and sit on our desk at the ministry, it's for us to set up a technical working group from the NCA, the NMC, GIBA, the Africa Media Bureau will put together the stakeholders. So all the issues we've raised here, including the broadcasting bill, what is our way forward? As minister, I don't want to take policy decisions because that's how I feel. I want to take policy decisions because I believe that the industry agrees with me that that is how we should go. Okay, I've been accused of holding too many meetings, but the truth of the matter is my meetings are engagements to get alignment, so that when I make a policy decision, you don't have a pushback from your stakeholders who you have to work with. So I would rather have 10 meetings and get everybody on board so that when we roll out the policy, it's seamless, than to have only 2 meetings and then end up in court with Giba. They like to go to court, especially Gloria. So on the broadcasting bill, we need to have, the working group will have to look at that, and let's get alignment. When we get alignment and it sits with government's vision, we'll be able to pick it. Are we doing option 1, option 2, option 3? I personally have a view that we could do option 1 and 3, strengthening the NCA, strengthening the NMC, and still have a broadcasting bill that speaks to a number of things, okay, and speaks to the independence of those institutions. As minister, I've already started work on strengthening the NCA. We are doing, in fact, at the ministry, we are reviewing 15 legislation at the same time. We're reviewing and doing new legislation. So we're reviewing the NCA Act, we're reviewing the Electronic Communications Act at the same time, and taking care of some of the loopholes that exist. Do we do same for the NMC and strengthen its regulatory mandate? And then have an overarching broadcasting bill that speaks to the new mandates of both institutions as independent institutions. Again, that's a policy position I hold. It's not the policy position we will run. The stakeholder engagement will draw a conclusion on that. Now, in one of the presentations that came up was the issue of misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech and ethical standards. Again, the Ministry of Communication we were just about to go to cabinet with a draft bill, and I've been speaking about this. I've been issuing warnings about hate speech and misinformation. We've drafted legislation. It's called the MDHI, Misinformation, Disinformation, Hate Speech, and Publication of Other Information's Bill. It's going to go to cabinet, and from there we'll bring it to parliament, and we'll pass that legislation. And when we do, it would spell out clearly that this is fully cognizant of the rights to free speech in the Constitution, but recognizing the fact that your rights end where mine begin. And so we would have that framework clearly spelled out. And George, just so that we are clear, there was a lot of reference to a broadcasting law. We don't have a broadcasting law. There's a proposed bill that Kojopo Nkrumah worked on, but it's not been worked on yet by Parliament. So we don't have a law properly so-called. It's a bill in its current form. Again, there's just some clarity I wanted to give to what Paul said about the Electronic Communications Tribunal. It's important that we specify that it is an independent body just like the NMC. It is not under the mandate of the NCA. The NCA provides some support in terms of finances to the Electronic Communication Tribunal, but the Electronic Communication Tribunal is on record. In fact, the NCA has made propositions that, why should we keep funding an institution that rules against us? And a classic case was the case involving my predecessor and Radio Gold and a few other stations. The ECT ruled against the NCA. And in fact, it is that ruling by Justice Dateba that has enforced the position that if you have a 5-year license and you do not renew it 3 months to the expiration, we cannot treat it as a renewal. And that's why we can also not impose a fine on you because your license has lapsed. And so the ECT is a fully independent legal body that they have the powers of a high court, actually. Then the last thing that I would speak about is this digital switchover. And I think the gentleman from WAPS, Theodore, spoke about that. He was asking why we've not done the digital switchover. Well, we've not done the digital switchover because of some of the things I inherited policy-wise. There was this purchase of set-top boxes, and the boxes are stuck in a warehouse. There are issues of duties and all of that, duties in the excess of 82 million Ghana cedis. We figured a way around it, but once those boxes are acquired by them, get into the custody of the ministry and put out in the market, and the NTA finishes all the things that they're doing, we'll do the digital switchover. Because like you've said, a lot of channels or TV stations are now broadcasting digitally, but we still have some analog broadcasts ongoing in the country. And so we'll need to do the final switchover, because again, not every household has a digital TV. So we need to identify and distribute those boxes. But my hope is that by end of Q2 2026, we could have finished those distributions, and then we can announce the digital switchover. But to the Africa Media Bureau, I want to say thank you. To Giba, all the stakeholders in the room, thank you for having this conversation with us. Let's have the rapporteurs work with the key highlights. I expect to see work on the broadcasting bill. I expect us to see a consolidation of the media space. Okay? Because advertising revenue, we must figure out how. I was just telling Vivian, if your advertising revenue in the country is 1 billion cedis, and you are splitting that across 700 entities, vis-a-vis if you were splitting that across 300 entities, you are businessmen. Work the math. Okay? As a regulator, we will only work with you and your guidance and your leadership, so that it doesn't appear as though the ministry is the one doing it. It must be collaborative. So let's look at that consolidation of the space. Let's look at how we also deal with the issues of spectrum management and then the broadcasting issues. And I think that once we have all of that, we can have this working group. To the Africa Media Bureau, I believe that 7 days is good enough from today for us to get the report. 7 days from today, we get the report. With the support of the NC and the NMC and GIBA, we'll set together the working committee, give ourselves some time to then bring up the roadmap for implementation. Because I don't expect this to be a one-off thing. It should be a yearly platform. By the time we come back next year to have a conversation of where we are in broadcasting in our country, we should be able to point the things that we raised this year, the issues President Kufuor raised about a media development fund for Africa. How do we start working on that? How do we strengthen? I mean, I've heard the work KNET and WAPS are doing. Some of the broadcasters raise issues about the DTT platform and some of the complaints we've had about its stability. How do we work to make sure that the DTT platform is stable enough such that people do not have downtimes? These are real issues we need to have conversations about. And so we need to have this stakeholder workshop, or working group, and then we can work with it. So to Africa Media Bureau, thank you so much. Let's work together and let's have a strengthened broadcasting sector. I thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Sam George. He's been fantastic, hasn't he? He's been here for over 4 hours or so. So over 4 hours, Minister